The following program is paid for by the Waits Campaign Fund. A panel from the Terrebonne Parish DA's office answered questions from businessman Mart Black so that you could better understand your DA's office and how the office itself works. We now join Mart Black for a comprehensive look at the Terrebonne Parish District Attorney's Office.
My name is Glenn Bourgeois. I'm the Director of Probation Services at the DA's office. I supervise all of the probation, diversion, and pretrial release programs associated with the programs office.
Hi, I'm Bernadette Pickett. I'm an Assistant District Attorney and I'm the Executive Director of the Terrebonne Children's Advocacy Center.
Hi, I'm Kevin Guidry. I'm the Administrator of the Terrebonne Parish District Attorney's Office.
I'm Danny Smith, and I'm the Drug Court Coordinator for the Terrebonne Parish District Attorney's Office. Also, am the Director of the Domestic Violence Program and the Administrator for the DWI Court.
Hi, I'm Clarence McGuire with the Terrebonne Drug Court and DWI Court. I'm the Treatment Director.
Let's turn to community supervision. What types of programs are offered through the DA's office? And talk about the benefits to Terrebonne Parish. What do taxpayers get out of it?
Okay, we operate several different types of programs under the umbrella of community supervision. They have some things in common, and they have some aspects to them that are very different. One of the major programs that we operate is probation, what we call court-appointed probation. Some people refer to as CAP. And Mr. Waits operates probation as a service to the courts, so that the judges can, as a sentencing option, choose to refer misdemeanor offenders who have either pled or been found guilty of a misdemeanor offense, refer them out to our office for community supervision. And what that would entail is they would be assigned a case manager, and they would have to comply with the term of probation along with a series of conditions that the judge would decide at sentencing. And so it could be a 6 to 12 month period of supervision. Most of the time it's 6 months, but for misdemeanors. But that assigned caseworker would then work with that person to get those conditions completed in a timely manner. Our case managers go into the courts for the misdemeanor weeks and some other days during court to report back to the judge on the compliance of the defendant, their progress on probation, and then at the end of the day makes a determination as to successfully terminate that probation or to remand that person back to custody for failure to comply with the terms and conditions of their probation. The same 7, I think we're at 7 right now, the same 7 professional case managers that operate that probation program also supervise, also the same case managers that supervise our diversion and pretrial release programs as well. So the diversion programs, and we have a few of those. We have what most people would know as PTI, which is pretrial intervention. That's probably the largest program in the diversion side of things. We also have an extensive narcotics diversion program, which is treatment heavy, intensive supervision, and narcotics specific. And we have a few other diversion programs as well. But the difference between probation and diversion is that whereas probation is a sentencing option and that person is convicted, diversion tries to select eligible defendants who have not been convicted. And basically it's a first-time, non-violent, non-repeat offender type program where if that person, first and foremost, is willing to show a willingness to accept the consequences of what they've done, and that's first, and equally important, a willingness to do what it takes to restore the victim, if there is a victim in the case. If a person shows a willingness to comply with those things and accept responsibility for what they've done, they can have the opportunity to participate in a diversion program, again with some of very similar conditions as to what you would see in a probation program. And if they can successfully complete that term of diversion, they do have the opportunity to walk away with a clean slate, avoid the stigma of a criminal conviction and all the things that go along with that.
Does this include worthless checks or anything else that would be considered a crime?
We actually have a separate program that does address worthless checks, but We do operate the diversion program for misdemeanor and felony offenses, so it's a wide array of offenses that you can be diverted for. Some of the things we're looking for, of course, is a lack of criminal history. Like I said, a willingness to accept consequences, pay restitution, and take care of any victims' issues. And we work very closely with Bernadette here as far as contacting and keeping very close contact with our victims. But what diversion does is it tries to, through intensive supervision, some of those standard probationary conditions we had talked about, but also tries to address perhaps the underlying cause of the crime. As Danny was talking about how drugs, for instance, are a huge driver of crime. When we do an interview at the enrollment stage of a client's participation, if our caseworkers, and they're very good at doing this, in the early stages of the program, sometimes we'll identify one of those driving issues. So a person may have been charged with a theft, but the underlying issue is substance abuse. We can then modify the terms and conditions of that program to try to address those issues. Diversion is a voluntary situation, unlike probation. The person is agreeing to enroll under the terms and conditions that the district attorney's office has set, and we have an opportunity and an ability to be flexible in that diversion and to adjust those conditions to meet problems as we can identify them. An example of that is through our diversion and probation programs. A big part of our screening process and a big part of how we go about determining whether someone's eligible for diversion or what their conditions might be. Very often what we'll do is we'll contact the arresting officer, the arresting agency, and talk to them. You can get a lot of detail out of a police report, but very often there are other concerns that may not have made it to the report. So we'll talk to the arresting officer about the defendant's attitude and about some of the things that may have taken place that may not have been pertinent to the criminal side of the investigation, but it might go to helping us understand the frame of mind this person was in when they committed the crime, and how they interacted with law enforcement. We coordinate with the Sheriff's Office and HPD on many of these misdemeanor cases, but also with the Department of Wildlife and Fisheries. We have a great working relationship with Captain Como and those guys at the Region 6 office. I'm on the phone with those guys at least 3 or 4 times a week talking about closed season shrimp cases or oyster violations, polluted oysters. Those guys work cases that involve informants and complaints, public complaints. So it's not unusual for Wildlife and Fisheries to call us and give us the background on maybe someone who called in a complaint of closed season shrimping. A lot of times, in that case, it would be the shrimpers themselves, and that's been an issue here, especially this time of year. State police, we do divert eligible traffic violations. Some of those violations might come as a result of a traffic accident. So that's a situation where we may have a victim in that case that Bern has already talked to. There may have been some medical issues, some injuries as a result of a traffic accident. We'll want to call that trooper and talk to him about the traffic crash scene and what kind of state the victim and the violator were in when those citations were written. So yeah, we coordinate a lot with local law enforcement, and we have a great working relationship with those guys, and that's all at the direction of Joe Waits. Joe Waits, he coordinates with those guys on his level, and we do the coordination, on our level.
If I need something from the Sheriff's Office, the Homewood Police, the Parish President, I pick up a phone call and we make things happen because we work together and we get along very well. And that's the way communities should work.
It seems that Mr. Waits has initiated multiple services in his office. Of course, we know that it is a prosecutor position. You put hard criminals in jail. Mr. Waits has really gone after hard criminals, but it seems like he is equally focused on changing people's direction on lesser crimes when they're willing to change themselves. Is his whole mindset not to use that office for power, but to help people?
And my job in particular, it's of the utmost importance. As you know, I run the Children's Advocacy Center. The Children's Advocacy Center, we have to have a multidisciplinary team, MDT. We have meetings at least once a month, give or take a few months here and there, sometimes every week depending on our caseload. On that multidisciplinary team is a member of the Sheriff's Office, a member of the Home Police Department, workers from the Department of Children and Family Services, someone from the Coroner's Office, you know, the DA's office, the investigator, or the interviewer from the advocacy center. So they sit around the table and discuss very serious cases. They work together. No one's ego overtakes the other one. They're working for the best interest of the child and for the best interest of the parish. So on my level, in my job, if we didn't have cooperation, we wouldn't have the success we're having with the prosecuting of the defendant in these cases, knowing where to go next on these cases, knowing the pattern of things that are happening. So we would not be where we are now if we didn't have the cooperation between the agencies. It's very important to me.
In past Terrebonne Parish politics, elected officials did not get along. It seems that Mr. Waits has a way of rallying people together for the betterment of the parish. Am I reading this right?
No question. The ability to partnership and work with these various agencies has been tremendous. It is paramount to what we do. It is so important. You know, I was thinking earlier with some of the comments. You know, we have a partnership with Terrebonne General Medical Center with that Project Lead program that you spoke about. Each and every one of our programs is endorsed and supported by our local sheriff's office, police department, the Louisiana State Police, Captain Darren Knockhand, the commander of Troop C right here. As a matter of fact, Martin, you know, we talked earlier about these grants and things, and in many of these cases, when we're applying for some of this federal money, the federal government has wised up in some ways, and they say, who else is involved? Who supports what you do? Is everybody aware that you have a victim services unit, that you're asking for money to help support that victim services unit, that you have a drug and DWI court, and that you're asking for that money? And we actually have to provide, in many of these grant applications and renewals, letters of support from the sheriff of the parish, the local state police commander, the chief of police, the parish president, you know, all of the elected officials, all the public officials that are involved in the criminal justice, the judges, etc. So one of the great things with the fact that Mr. Waits gets along so well with all of these folks is that that's never a problem. That's never an issue. When we go to when I call Darren Knockhand and say, Darren, this is what I need, and I need it on state police letterhead, it's not even a second thought. Kevin, I'll have it to you by the end of the business day. You know, it's that kind of cooperation that makes our jobs easier, because there's never an issue, there's never a question, because we have those partnerships. And those partnerships allow us to do a better job of serving our constituents, and serving the public.
Well, a perfect example is with our drug court. In every jurisdiction, there are 50 drug courts in Louisiana, and in all 50, the people in the drug court are felons, and they have to be supervised by the Department of Corrections. And when I said that to Mr. Waits, he said, well, how about if we get the sheriff to give us one of his deputies full-time, and we supervise our own people? Because the Department of Corrections has a caseload of, might be anywhere from 50 to 100 people that they have to see. So they might see them once a month or something like that. By having our own law enforcement officers, our probation officer, he sees them daily. That's unheard of. And that's the kind of cooperation we have with the Sheriff's Department.
And we also work well with the Louisiana Workforce Commission. So, and they know that with the backing of our DA, whatever it is that we're asking them to do, they're always willing to help out. We've seen what we're not only with them, Jacob's Ladder. We also have Stark Corporation, and I think because they know that we do have the DA that we have, they're able to cooperate with us in all aspects there. So it definitely helps.
When the Advocacy Center first started, it was a model that we found in Huntsville, Alabama. Then there was one in Jefferson Parish. So of course, as Kevin said earlier, Mr. Waits found the program and he likes programs. So we visited, we brought the program here, and it all started with a videotape. You have a child victim, and the idea was to videotape this child telling their story. In the monitoring room, you would have law enforcement, you would have someone from social services, you know, maybe CASA or some advocates or something. And that way you didn't have to tell, the child didn't have to tell the story but one time. And that tape could be used in pretrial proceedings, you know, without getting into a lot of legal stuff. Sometimes you'd still have to have the child available for cross-examination, but at least for all pretrial purposes, you had that videotape and the child wasn't brought from agency to agency in and out of the courtroom. And that worked well. Mr. Waits decided that he would have a special prosecutor handling those cases. So with the police officers, you know, doing their investigation, us doing our videotape, prosecution rates, conviction rates went up. As time passed, we realized, okay, we're doing this, but we're sending a victim basically home to deal with it themselves. The norm, and truly the norm maybe in other states, not truly in every parish here, was to get a licensed counselor. That's expensive. You know, you're talking about someone who's a licensed clinical social worker who could charge you about $300 an hour to counsel kids. And last year we had 122 new cases come into the Advocacy Center. So multiply that number. So we were lucky enough to get a licensed clinical social worker who just loved the idea of helping these kinds of victims. So now the poor child who comes in, who is traumatized by what's happening, we meet them at the front door, and our interviewer as well as our victim advocate begins to get information, welcomes the child into the center, which is a very child-friendly place, you know, friendly setting with the beanbag chairs and the doll houses and this, that, and the other. So the child comes in, and the first thing that happens, of course, is the interview. On that day, we get a lot of information from the parent, the guardian, or if the child's in DCFS custody, whoever brought the child in, and to immediately start counseling services. So once that's done, the child kind of goes home that day or goes back to the safe place that they know. And from there, counseling services are set up. The counselor will see the child once a week, twice a week on early cases if you have to, on very serious cases if you have to, and it just depends. You asked about the mindset of the child who comes into the center. I guess it's nothing that we can imagine. You know, the child comes in not knowing what to expect, had been through so much trauma to begin with. I guess the only way I can explain it to you is to tell you about a case. Within the last couple of months, we had a young girl, 11 years old, who we get the phone call from the police officer telling us that we have an 11-year-old girl who's pregnant. The little girl comes in with her mom. It was the mother's boyfriend who did this to her, who had been living with them for years. It had happened to the little girl for years. The little girl came in, she told her story, and as she's talking to the victim advocate outside of the interview, she says, "I'm not even sure how this happened." That's how sad the situation is. You look at the 11-year-old girl, not that it's okay that this happens to anybody, but this little girl truly looked like an 11-year-old girl, you know, a little girl. And it was just so heartbreaking. We worked with the little girl, we worked with the counselor. The mother didn't know what to do with the child's child. The counselor was able to find someone which stepping outside of our box. We've never dealt with adoption before. Found someone to help us with that, and the little girl put the baby up for adoption. The little girl is now back in school, making great grades, made great grades prior to that, was an honor student in school, and she's of course still coming to counseling with us. When After she delivered, she asked our counselor, "Are you finished with me?" And it was shock. She said, "No, baby, I'm not finished with you." She says, "When are you going to be finished with me?" And the counselor told her, "When you think I should be finished with you." So it's a safe haven for these kids. They've been through a terrible situation. The families don't know how to handle this. It was someone the mother thought she could trust, and at that point the mother didn't have anyone she could trust. So our victim advocate worked with the mom. The child continues to go through counseling, and it's just making a bad situation a terrible situation and trying to help them see that it won't be bad forever. And he asked me to step into the role as executive director after the Advocacy Center was established back in early 1998. I was still in the courtroom. I was doing some misdemeanors. I was running some stuff at city court, and I thought I'd be bored out of my mind. I said, "But if this is what you want me to do, this is what I'll do." As I mentioned earlier, we range from 130 or so cases a year. Last year it was 122, but we're well on track to go above that number this year. It's just you have to do something with child abuse. Child abuse is worse than anyone realizes. It's physical abuse, it's the sexual abuse. You have to get people who know what they're doing to talk about it, to try to help these victims. People ask me, what does a predator look like? The bad thing is I can't tell you that because there's no mold for it. So with the cooperation of the different agencies that I mentioned in the multidisciplinary team, at least we know how to help these kids once they come to us. And without it, I don't know. I have to sing praises for the detectives at Houma Police Department, at the Sheriff's Office, the workers at DCFS, because they truly came in and they want to do the right thing. And without it, we would have so many kids, the parents wouldn't know what to do with them. The mother I mentioned earlier, with the little girl who was expecting, she had no idea what to do with that baby that was growing inside of her baby. She didn't know the first place to turn for an adoption agency or how to do that. She thought that cost money that they didn't have. So in her mind, they were just going to keep that baby. An 11-year-old can't raise a child. And that was something we were able to help them do. And it was a hard decision, but they knew it was the right decision. And now the baby's in a good home. The little girl is back in the correct grade. And now she has a future, hopefully, with the help of our counselor. And she has a great little mind. Who knows? The world is out there for her. So without the Advocacy Center, I don't know where they would be.
It's an opportunity to help people. Help people, and helping people, as I said, is my passion.
It seems like Mr. Waits has a great ability to put people in positions that they might not realize at the time are not only good for the DA's office, but complementary of their own abilities as well. Is this what happened to you?
You know, I guess I wanted to be that hardcore prosecutor, and, you know, but I love this, and I can't say that my work is hard every day, but it's very taxing. And, you know, people may think that we kind of sit around the Advocacy Center because sometimes we have to have some downtime. The things that we hear, you know, sometimes I just have to pull my staff aside and say, okay, maybe it's some ice cream time, or maybe it's time just to shoot the bull a little, because the things we hear, I don't know, you can't wash it out of your brain. You can't get it out of there.
I wanted the DA's office to do more than just prosecute. I thought about it, and I wanted the DA's office, my vision was for the DA's office to be a catalyst for solutions. A catalyst for solutions to not only put people in jail, I want to resolve their problems, make them taxpayers, not a tax burden. I want to make them productive, get them back, educate them, employ them, mental issues, economic issues, all these different issues. I want to get those issues to help them with these issues and get them on their feet. People don't understand. A large portion of our population have been very fortunate. They don't understand that a person that has no money, has no job, may have mental issues, they have no family, all these things, they get out of jail one day, they have nowhere to go. What do you expect them to do? that's why I wanted to come up with these programs to help them get them back on their feet. I thought that was very important to preventing crime.